So we're going to start out with a general question. So overall, what was your experience with COVID-19?
Anxiety ridden. That's such a hard question. Like, that's such a big, a broad question because I feel like at different points of the pandemic, like, I felt so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say, like, you can't sum that up in an overall experience. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
because there's just so many ups and downs and so many different variables to it. So.
Okay. Well, we can get a little bit more specific. So first, when and how did you initially hear about it, and what were your immediate thoughts?
Okay. So I remember when it first was getting talked about at the beginning of the year, I was hearing stuff in the mainstream every now and then, different countries, and then when it got closer to February and March came around, they were talking about it more and more, and I remember being at my mom's house and then playing CNN and stuff, and my mom was just like, this is serious, Rachel, then I'm like, in my head I'm thinking this is Ebola all over again, or H1N1 or something like that, and I'm like, okay, Mom, this happens all the time, it's gonna be gone, whatever. Did not think it was gonna turn out like this. So then I was at Walmart, and it was after the toilet paper thing started happening, and everybody started hoarding toilet paper, and I was seeing jokes about that, and I didn't think though that people were actually doing that. So I'm pulling up at Walmart. I remember I was on the phone with Skylar, I was sending Skylar a voice clip, and I was like, oh my god, this lady, this older lady is literally filling her trunk up with toilet paper right now. This is real, this is really what people are doing. I was like, what? And that's kind of when, in that second, it kind of hit me, this isn't a real thing, this isn't just a joke, right? So I'm at Walmart to get Caden soccer cleats for his soccer season that was about to start. So, I'm seeing this, and I'm like, okay, this is really happening. People are freaking out over something, So I go in Walmart, and so I'm like, let me go over to the toilet paper aisle and just see. The only toilet paper I can find is one little roll. Okay, so by the time I get my cleats, I get back out in the car, I literally get in the car, and I get a message from his soccer coach saying that his soccer season was canceled due to COVID. And so all of that at one time is when, at that moment, I realized, okay, this is real. This is a thing. It's serious.
Okay, so what changes have you made in your daily routine with yourself and with the kids, in precaution over quarantine and even now?
Well, and quarantine was a lot different, of course, because we stayed inside, and there's just so many. I would panic, in the beginning, okay, when everybody was, everybody's quarantined, everybody's staying, oh, she can get the thing. Lauren, no ma'am, come here. Put her head.
We can watch it, okay? We just
I hope that you can hear me in here.
Maybe we can.
Okay. So, in the beginning, it was things just, we're not leaving the house unless we have to, doing grocery pickup, that sort of thing, and then the mask just came more into play and stuff like that, of course, hand washing and everything like that, and having to teach Caden, reiterate why it's really, really important that you wash your hands and that sort of thing, and not letting people come over, which is also hard as a mom because you have people that want to see your kids, even, their dad was here, not everybody feels the same way about it, so some people are taking it serious, some people aren't. I'm back and forth on what to do. All I know is I have kids and I don't want them to die, and so their lives are in my hands, and then he's still going out around friends and hanging out, and he's like, well, I'm not going to not see my kids, and I'm like, no, we're staying in here, John Free, in our bubble, you've got to either stay home or not, you can't do that. So it was just hard. Co-parenting became a challenge. Obviously a parent's not going to want to go without seeing their kids because of a quarantine. Their grandparents don't want to go without. So it was hard.
So what were some other particular experiences you had with the kids? Any specific challenges you had with them?
Yeah. Okay. So besides the co-parenting and raising family and stuff, there was one point that in the very beginning when I freaked out because I was more worried about the government at this point. I didn't know much about the virus. Like I said, I thought this was just a normal thing. And then I'm in my anxiety-ridden head, I'm the government's gonna this is, it. Like, they're fixing to take over. Like, they're going to come door to door. So I'm, like, freaking out that I haven't taught my kid how to hunt. I haven't taught my kid how to grow his own food. I'm, like, trying to map out. I'm like, look, son, if something ever happened, you run to your daddy's house. The woods right there. You go this way. Like, I was, like, spazzing hard. So that happened. And then I calmed down about that. And then, like, it's hard because I would, like, one day I'd be fine, and I'd be like, okay, we're probably going to get it. Like, everybody's going to get it, and, we probably had it, don't even know. Like, you just got to do what you can. And then the next day, I'm an anxiety-ridden mess, thinking that a trip to Walmart has killed my kids. Like, it was such an emotional roller coaster as a mom because you don't know. And it was, like, it was terrible. Like, it honestly, it was terrible. It was hard for them because they were at that age where, they right after they had turned 1, so they went from going to the grocery store with me all the time and going out in public to not going out in public at all. And then the first time they did again, I remember like seeing their eyes wonder and confusion as to these people in the outside world, like they had forgot about all that stuff. And it was something that I had to miss out on kind of too during that time, was not getting to see them, in public, and not getting to take them in public, and not getting like in, these different elements. It was just in the house or to my mom's, and that was it. And so it was, all of that stuff is challenging as a parent, going stir crazy and just anxiety. It was hard.
What about Caden, with school and everything? How did you deal with that?
That was a whole different ballgame, girl. That was rough. So he comes out of school, and the way they did it, that last month of, first grade that he was in, that was one thing. So then he goes into summer. Okay, cool. Like, Caden's home, summer break, whatever. That wasn't too bad. He got a little stir crazy, and I noticed his social anxiety getting worse. And I think that happens for a lot of people. It happened for me. Like, just getting so used to being at home that when we would go out, like, I would get anxiety about it, and I could tell that was happening to him too. Like, he was struggling in a lot of ways like that, I noticed. And I think it was just from being like, he basically had a 4-month-long summer break at that point, so that was hard. But then we went ahead and stayed in virtual when school started back, and it was grueling. There was no way that he was falling behind so much, and he's so smart, but it was like the reading course load and stuff was too much. I was taking classes at the time, plus I had them, and trying to do his, like, he was falling behind because of me. He's got great grades in school. He's, brilliant little boy. So I felt terrible, especially that the subject he was falling behind in was reading, just because I couldn't keep up with how much it was. So we had to put him back in school, and of course I had anxiety about that too. But he, literally the day that he went back to school, and the whole time he wanted to stay out. He chose to not go back. He didn't want to go back. He wanted to stay out. But the day that I put him back in school, he said, "Mom, it feels so good to be going back to school." And so like ever since the day he went back, like, I've noticed such a huge change in him. Like, all that anxiety went away, all that, like, just stuff he had been dealing with, it literally melted away as soon as he got back into school. But they closed down again, like, last week. So that was hard, and I was freaking out. I was like, they're gonna stay closed, and on one hand, I'm glad to not have to get them out first thing in the morning and have to do all that. But like, now I'm working full time, and so I would have to depend on my mom to do his virtual learning if she can barely navigate a smartphone. Like, it's just impossible. It's literally impossible, and all the teachers do everything so different, and so I'm terrified for them to shut back down. They started back, and all the teachers, I guess, that had COVID that made them shut down, they were better, but I was scared they weren't going to. But they started back yesterday, so.
Well, that's good. So would you say that there's one, online schooling versus in person that you prefer over the other? Because I know they both have like their pros and cons.
Like online or in person?
Which one would you prefer for him?
That's what's so hard. It's like there's pros and cons to both, because I guess I'm scared, obviously, of him getting it, and I'm immunocompromised. I have 2 babies here, so obviously I feel like if things are this bad, he should be home. But there's way more aspects to it that I feel like he needs to be in school for other reasons, for social reasons, and just learning reasons, because I'm not a good teacher apparently, and so those things make me feel like he needs to be in school. But there, of course, are other things that make me terrified about school. So I don't know. And it sucks when you're a mom and you don't know the answer to something like that. But I don't. I just know there's pros and cons to both. I feel like educational wise and mentally, he'd probably do better right now in school. but is that worth our help? I don't, it's scary.
It is really scary. So what about your relationships with your kids? Would you say that they've changed any, that they're better or worse? Have you learned anything?
Well, okay, so I've always, worked, and I've always worked myself, to near death their whole lives. But when my job laid us off, I was legitimately laid off from the sales job I had, and so I was able to draw unemployment during the summer. And so I was able to stay home with them, and it was like I was a stay-at-home mom, like for real, other than when they were like first born, for the first time. And I loved it, like it made me so sad every day to think of having to go back to work, because I got so used to being home with my kids every day, and I did not want to leave them again. Like, I did not want to miss out on stuff. Oh, I cried about it constantly because I just didn't want to. I didn't want somebody else to be raising them, and I realized what all I was going to be missing. Like she would do something small, and I'd be like, if I was working right now, I would have never seen that, and I would have never known she did that, and like stuff like that. So yeah, I learned, about being home with them more. Staying at home with your kids it's just as hard as working. It's definitely a full-time job, but I think my anxiety was starting to get worse too, like as far as going stir crazy in the house, and I feel better now that I'm working again, honestly. So I don't know, I miss them a lot.
So you've talked a little bit about, like, you've had a lot of anxiety, and obviously it's been hard on Kay. So what are some other ways, like, how do you feel like all of this has impacted, like, your mental health?
Not in a positive way, but it's added to it. Obviously I already had stress, I already had anxiety, I already had things to worry about, and you throw a global pandemic on it that, everybody is saying different things about. That's the hardest thing, You've got even the CDC admitting that, oh, maybe our numbers were skewed, so then one day you're like, okay, well, it's not that bad, and then the next day they're saying something else, and you got, you live in the South, and you live in the country in the South, and you go to the gas station, and people are going to look at you crazy without a mask, but you go in the city, or people are going to look at you crazy for wearing a mask, and you go to Gadsden 20 minutes down the road, and people are going to look at you crazy. It's all, there's so many different things to this that make it mess with your head, and make it a constant mental, battle. So it's definitely not been a positive thing at all. So anxiety, all that has been at its peak. But I'm not as anxious as I was. I'm getting there again, because I feel like the numbers are getting worse again and stuff, and it's getting bad again, and I'm worried about school closing, and I'm worried about all that. But as far as constantly being scared, every time they sneeze or every time they sniffle, or worrying if, I've killed them by going to the store, and did I forget to, my anxiety's not like that anymore as bad, but I'm scared it could get there again.
Yeah. Okay, so you were talking about, how everyone's been reacting, everyone's had different reactions. So overall, what do you think about the way the virus has been dealt with here? Do you think that it was dealt with properly?
Not at all.
What would you change, or what would you keep the same?
I would have changed everything. I feel like we have other countries that are, back to normal, and they're doing better because they handled things right the first time. And I feel like we basically half-assed dealt with everything, and it has put us to where we're just still, there was no point, we might as well not have done anything. Well, I wouldn't say that, I guess, but no, we did things I feel like we had a guideline of, not only had we not, maybe fired half the pandemic response team right before this happened, but, I feel like we could look at other countries that were getting affected before we were, and we could see what to do and what not to do, and how to handle things and how not to handle things, and we just completely did not do that. And, I think obviously our leadership has a whole lot to do with that, and how people have reacted to it individually, not to mention, our government as a whole. I think that, financially they have gone about things all the wrong ways, and it's just, they've done everything wrong, honestly. At this point, even our economy is struggling so bad, our jobs are struggling so bad, the service industry is struggling so bad. Some jobs are still operating at 50% capacity. They're shutting my kids' school down again, but we have, unemployment might as well be zero, and those are questions that are on unemployment that can make me qualify, but that they're not paying anything, and the little bit that they are paying, that runs out, I think, on December 26th now. So people are just screwed, you know, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that never even got their unemployment. So that's a whole other ball into it. Like, it's terrible, honestly. Like, it's absolutely, it's been, yeah, all the wrong ways.
So would you say there was anything they did right at all, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, maybe when they gave out the extra unemployment, when they did things like that, when they did the stimulus checks, sure, that was okay. I think that when they, you know, mandated, you know, quarantines and they limited, you know, all the 6-foot rule and the amount of people at gatherings and that kind of thing, yes, that was the right thing to do, but I don't think that they did that for long enough, and that's the problem, you know, and I think that everybody could easily foresee that being a problem, and here we back on to round 2 of it, when I feel like we could have been through it and done it now, had we just handled it better and more strict and stuff in the beginning.
So not to get like too political or anything, but do you think that, you know, after the last 2 months of learning and now with the new administration coming up, do you think that that's going to help any? Do you think that there will be some changes made?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, obviously, I don't know how the transition with the administration is going to go at this point. We don't know if he's going to concede and even, you know, if it has to go to the Supreme Court, when the new administration is even going to take over. So that's what worries me, is how bad it's going to get before then, before we can like get into this, okay, let's figure it out for real now this time, you know? But yes, I mean, I hope that once they do that, we can get through things and it'll be better.
So yeah, it's always better to be optimistic about it.
Yeah.
So when a vaccine is released, if it's released, are you going to take it? Are you going to give it to your kids? How do you feel about that?
I have no idea how to feel about that, and it's so terrifying. It's so terrifying, because I'm not anti-vax anyways. I'm not. I have opinions on vaccines that kind of differ. I do vaccinate my kids. I don't know, I worry about ingredients for profit anyway. So I already have skepticism there with the pharmaceutical industry and with the CDC, to be honest. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I'm not anti-vax. I do vaccinate my children. But a vaccine coming out this early and like rushing a vaccine through does scare me to death. It does. But what also scares me to death is us not having a vaccine, and the fact that this has killed, you know, already 50,000 people in this country, and we're never gonna get through this and back to normal, I don't think, until they do give a vaccine and at least somewhat mandate it. I don't know, but I'm terrified of how people are gonna react to that. I'm terrified of getting it. I heard from legitimate sources that they're saying that they need to be upfront, that the side effects to vaccines are not going to be easy. Like, that's scary. Like, we don't ever hear that, you know, really, from any vaccine. So it's, I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't think there's any way you really can know, especially when you hear something like that, like the side effects aren't to be taken lightly, or whatever it was they came out and said like a few weeks ago. And like, you have to give that to your children. My babies are about to be 2. Like, how, like what? You know? So I don't know. It's scary.
It's definitely a lot to think about. Okay. So, out of everything, what do you think that you've learned? You know, what are the biggest lessons do you think they can, or if anything at all, do you think?
How easy this kind of thing can happen. And I feel like the movies have warned us, you know, I feel like, I mean, Contagion basically spot on, like, told us, like, you know, oh, this can come from, you know, the way that, you know, food in China or anything, you know, like, and then not blaming, you know, China for the virus, but I'm just saying, but, you know, I think that Bill Gates warned us, you know, right before this happened, which is a little sketch, but I mean, he did. He said, you know, we're on the verge of a pandemic, we're due for one, like, this can happen so easily. And so I feel like this, when you look at it in that aspect, like, this is really mild compared to what could have happened. Like, could something like the movie Contagion have happened? Like a virus like that, you know? And that's what has made me, that's what I've learned from this, is how easy this can honestly happen. You can't go get that. You're gonna mess it all up, girl.
Okay, so what about long term? Do you think that in a few years this is all going to blow over? Do you think it's going to be like a permanent memory for everyone? What do you think?
I think it'll definitely be a permanent memory. I wonder what the kids' memories are going to be like, because I can't imagine that. And I don't think they understand, like, as many times as I say to them, like, you know, this has never happened in our lifetimes. Like, nothing like this has ever happened in our country. Like, we've never had to go these lengths. Like, this kind of thing is not something that we've ever experienced. I don't think they can really fully grasp that, and they just think to some extent, like, we know what we're doing, like, you know, and we don't, obviously. And so I think when they look back on that, it's going to be really weird, and it's going to be really weird for them to realize just how big of a deal this was, you know, and how different and strange this was. And I don't know, I've had friends tell me, you know, I think that we're going to have to wear masks forever. I think that this is never going away. Like, that's what I've had a lot of friends tell me, and I just never know how to respond because I don't know what to think. You know, I don't know what I think about it. So, I mean, there's no way to foresee that. I would think and hope that we could find a safe vaccine, and that, you know, we could get back to somewhat normal, no mask, and not having to worry about something like COVID, and just have a better pandemic response team in place for if something like this ever happened again with something else. But I would hope, I don't think COVID's going anywhere, but I would just hope that we can get it to where we don't have to worry like we are now, and get treatment for it and get a vaccine for it, to where we can just be better prepared for the next pandemic, but without the mask and without the social distancing and all that. I don't know, it's made me not want to really, like, I was thinking, like, if we ever didn't have large crowds again, and we could go back in large crowds, or we could stand really close in line, I wouldn't want, like, I like people back in line. I like kind of being like,
oh yeah, I definitely love personal space.
I feel like forever we're going to kind of be affected. They might not. They'll grow up normal, and we'll be like, no, back up 6 feet. But,
what about, like, historically, you know, like, you know, 100 years from now, what do you think people are going to say about this? Do you think it's going to be a major event? Do you think it's going to be small?
I think it'll definitely be major. I think it also is going to be a big thing about how long it lasts. You know, if we're looking at historically, and that's still a thing, then we're going to be talking about, oh, how this particular instance that's totally normal in our life started before it was a normal thing. You know, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, but if it's not still going on, then they'll be like, oh yeah, there was this part of history that there was this thing called COVID-19, you know? So it's kind of like about whether or not it's still going on or not, I guess, you know? Like, then it's just going to be about how it started.
Okay, do you think that there are any positive outcomes from all of this? Obviously, there's a lot of negative, and I don't want to overshadow that in any way, but is there any?
You know, whenever I got, this is just for me personally, I guess, and maybe a few others that happen to be in my shoes, but whenever I got laid off, I was really scared, and I ended up getting thrown on unemployment. I got to stay home with my kids. It was really, I posted a thing about this, and I tried to word it as sensitively as I could, but just talking about, you know, we all have our own experiences with what's going on, and, you know, this is just mine, and I can't help that, you know. And I had a friend, like, angry react to that, I guess, because it was wrong with me to act like I had a blessing come out of this thing, which I totally get. But I did. I mean, I was able to, you know, draw, you know, a substantial amount on unemployment to get us through, and accomplish the things that we were going through at the time. You know, I was in the middle of just moved recently. I was still getting furniture, so I was still able to continue doing all that. And I was able to stay home with my kids. And so even though there was a lot of constant anxiety about it, like everything, I always felt like it was just going to fall out from under me at any minute. Like, I never knew what unemployment was going to do. There was one point I had to drive to Montgomery in the 4 hours by myself, walk two blocks in, like, at midnight in the hood in Montgomery by myself with all this gear, sleep in a parking lot with 300 people by myself, and then spend 8 hours in line the next day moving an inch every, like, 10 minutes, all for them to fix one little problem, and then be like, oh yeah, you're fine, it's fixed. So, like, it was scary. Like, it wasn't like security. It was constantly scary that something was going to go wrong, or we were all going to get the disease and die. So, I mean, it was constantly worry there, with that blessing of being able to stay home and being able to have some type of security and at the moment. So that was just me personally, though. So that was what was positive, I guess, that came out of that for us. As the world as a whole, though, no, not really. I mean, other than just being aware of what to do different next we're so divided, and it hasn't brought us together as a country or anything like that. So I don't know.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with, personally feeling like, there was a blessing that came out of it, because I've talked to a lot of people about this, and a lot of people have said the same thing, obviously it's a bad thing that happened, but.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like guilty saying that sometimes, and it's hard because I know that a lot of people have, died, a lot of people have lost people, a lot of people have lost their jobs, they didn't have security in their income. It wasn't a good thing. A lot of people are stuck in, abusive households and not able to leave. Like, there's so many different aspects, and so many people have suffered a lot from this. So it can make you feel guilty to say that. But in retrospect, I know that I can't help my own situation.
Right.
We dealt with a lot. Believe me, there was a whole lot there going on with us too. And this has been one of the toughest years. It has not been easy by any means. That was just a couple of months of bliss that we had, and it was still, a lot going on. So, I totally get that this has been a tough year. I'm on the verge of having to work 3 jobs.
Well, a lot of people think that things are going to be better next year. Do you think what do you think about that,
I have no idea. If the Biden administration can turn things around, then sure, maybe if he can get the economy back stimulated. I get that. Whatever the stock market's doing doesn't have anything to do with individual people and how hard we're suffering right now. The service industry alone tells me how hard people are still suffering. It's not just about going to a job and getting paid an hourly wage. It's about, small businesses. It's about gig workers and all that. It's about, it doesn't matter. There's a million different jobs and a million different people suffering as a result of the economy right now, whether they want to admit it or not. So if he can get all that back stimulated, and get things rolling again, then sure, yeah, hopefully so.
Well, are there any, final thoughts that you want to add? Anything specific that we didn't discuss that you wanted to talk about?
You asked all your questions exactly what was going through my head. I think that's it. Yeah, I hope that it gets better, and I hope that we can figure this thing out. I hope that people take it seriously and we can all get on the same page and there can be some peace too. But whether that's going to happen, I don't know. So there's a whole lot of other stuff going on there politically that's making it, just constantly divided, and I hate that. So I just hope we can come together and get it all worked out somehow.
Me too. I really hope things work out for the better.
Where are you going? Yeah. It's morbid too. One other thing is seeing them when we first started wearing masks, we get our masks, we're gonna put our masks on. So I put the mask on them, and they're too young to technically wear them. They have to be 3, I think. So they don't wear them in public, but I put the mask on. It was morbid. It was really morbid almost, and they were so used to seeing people in public with them, seeing them with them, that they didn't think nothing of it. It was just cringy. It was almost oh God, it's so weird. It's just a new weird way of, it's crazy times we're living in.
No.
We all developed that stay safe thing. I noticed everybody as a whole, just that became the thing to say. So that's all we can do, I guess. We just stay safe.
Well, I appreciate you giving me all your thoughts. I
hope you can hear everything.
I hope so too, but it's the kids. It'll be alright.
It's me mumbling.
We can get it now. Come on.